Hello everyone, hope you're doing well. It's time for a short video just going over another little leak that has come out about the next update, and this is the F111. Now, we already have the F111 in the game, but there are two other variants that are supposed to be coming in, the F111F for America and the F111C for Britain in the form of the Australian variant. So that is actually really cool. So we're going to go through in this video both of the different variants, the differences between the one we already have in the game, and also at the same time their general kind of implementation and what to see. And maybe even one day we could see the F111K, which was of course the British proposed version, which never got finished. Anyway, if you enjoy the content, make sure to subscribe to the channel. And also, if you want to get access to data mines and also these leaks firsthand, I'll leave a link in the description to the Discord, the What and the Snail Mine, where all of these come from. So, make sure to check that out. Let's get started. So the first aardvark we're going to be having a look at is the F111F. Now this was the final variant of the major variants of the F111, which was produced for America. It was comprehensively upgraded in many different ways, the major parts being the engines and also the avionics system that's inside. One of the interesting things about the aardvark is depending on which variant you're looking at, they're completely different from each other. So for example, the F111D has a really interesting kind of upgrade package in its avionics, giving it the Mark II avionics, which gave it access to a Doppler radar and also multifunction displays, and gave it access to being able to use semi-active radar homeling missiles, meaning it could be an air threat. But the F111F had the Mark IIB avionics system, which is different from that, giving it different abilities, such as the FB111A's ANAPQ-144 radar, which is more designed for other uses. The other interesting thing is they massively upgraded its engines, starting off with the TF30P100 engines. This gave it a lot more power under the hood. Basically, it gave it 35% more thrust than the F111A and also E, so incredibly quick. The other part is it could go Mach 1.2 at sea level on full afterburner. So this thing is going to be very fast in the game, but also going to burn through fuel like you've never seen before. The interesting thing though as well, depending on which time period you're looking at, in the 70s it used that engine, but then it got upgraded once again in the 80s with the TF30P109 version, which basically meant that they were even better. So they were even faster, even, more efficient, which is kind of cool. So the other parts that they also changed, they improved the carry points on the vehicle, so therefore it could carry a few more things, and made it more designed for kind of the modern day in the 70s and 80s. So gave it access to precision laser guided munitions and also many other parts as well. So this thing would be a comprehensive upgrade over the F111 that we have. It would be faster, it would have a better avionics suite, and it would also be able to carry more ordnance. Basically better in every single way. This vehicle was the pinnacle of the F111 and was the one which eventually in the 90s was replaced by the F-15E Strike Eagle, which is kind of crazy to think about how long this thing lasted. It served from 1970 pretty much all the way until 1996. The F111C is a little less complicated. Basically, what you do is you take an F111A, you improve it by giving it the F111B wings, which were slightly longer than the A's, and then you give it a different landing gear as well. The interesting thing about this one is it's an Australian vehicle, and therefore it would go in the British tech tree, which is pretty fun, since the F111C was only used by the Royal Australian Air Force. Now, the reason why the Australians ended up getting the F111 is because they wanted to replace their Canberras, which they were using. Basically, the Canberras had a bit of an issue. They weren't supersonic, and also, at the same time, they didn't really have a proper radar, and either electronic countermeasures, meaning that they were sitting ducks in the air by the time the 1950s came around. So Australia did a bunch of studies working out what they wanted to bring along. There was a bunch of different vehicles that were in the running. The Dassault Mirage 4 was there, the A5 Vigilante, the F4 Phantom from the Americans, but eventually, after working out what they wanted, they decided to go for the F111, and therefore America started building one specifically for them. Now, this meant there was a bunch of delays. It took a while to come into service, but eventually it did, and it fit exactly what Australia needed, which was a vehicle which had a longer distance that it could travel, something that didn't need refueling based on what distances they wanted to go, and also could defend itself, plus have a bunch of really cool weaponry on top of it as well. And this was procured in the 1960s by Australia, and it was used into the 2000s. It was officially retired on the 3rd of December 2010, so therefore it had a very long service history, starting technically introduced into the RAAF in 1973, so was quite a decent chunk. Now, the vehicle itself is different in certain ways compared to the earlier F111s, even though the outside is not too different. They did add newer stuff into it. Basically, there was a new set of digital flight control computers in it. It had a new nav-attack system, which was known as the PAVE-TAC laser infrared targeting system, and also it had, once again, an avionics upgrade as well, just overall with it. Now, the interesting thing about the vehicle is, once again, just like the F, it did get upgraded engines as it went along. So it started off with some with a version of the engines that used before, the P108, but eventually it was upgraded to some other ones, which is quite cool. So giving it a decent amount of thrust, basically 20,840 pounds of thrust on the vehicle itself. So you can see with the F111F, with the F111C, we're going to get some more Aardvarks in the air, and pretty much the ones that everybody's looking forward to. The major thing to chat about, though, is do you think this Australian one is going to be a premium or not? Because one of the problems that Australia has had in the British tree so far is pretty much all of their vehicles have been premiums, and that kind of sucks when you think about the Sentinel, when you think about the ACs, the Boomerangs, and also the only one that I think, which technically isn't a premium, is the Beaufighter, the Mark 21, which is kind of around. So it would be nice if the Aardvark wasn't just, brought in for these guys, but hopefully it can be brought in, for America and Britain at the same time. And then hopefully, eventually, we could see the K, because that would be hilarious, especially since it would make a lot of the TSR2 lovers a little bit in shambles. But hey-ho, we'll see what happens with that going forward. The major thing is we're looking to get some more Aardvarks, and who can be sad with that? The Aardvark in the game is a pretty decent vehicle. It's quite easy to fly, it's good for base bombing, and that's about it. These ones would have some increased capabilities, which would make them a bit more fun. As always, I hope you have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next time. I'd just like to thank GMG Smiley, CD Beans, Chieftain Mike, EMN3 Galaxy, Tulio Pontecorvo, Brendan Quinn, Carrion Crow, Gus Irenicus, Pyman, Wartinder, Teddy, Daniel Stanton, Martinez, B. Young, Ozzy Panzer, Alan Hacker, Liam Shear, Opium Prime, Lafouche, Sem Aslan, Uncle Bean, and Derek R. for supporting the channel.